Hello everybody, this is True Demon, the Devil's Stockbroker, and in this video I'm going to be covering BBIG and the latest due diligence, technical analysis, and a few new events that have been announced on Vinco Ventures. Let's go ahead and get the technical analysis out of the way. So, BBIG is getting absolutely pummeled right now. We can thank Mr. Colucci for his unannounced and unauthorized 8K statement that came out of Vinco Ventures just a couple of days ago. And, well, I'm not sure exactly what he was trying to accomplish by announcing that there had been a hostile takeover attempt in the company, but honestly, it just kind of made everybody look like a bunch of clowns, and, well, that had a pretty negative effect on the stock, as you can see. We're trading well below the liquidity level that I had estimated for BBIG, and I'm sure that this came as a surprise as much to the market makers as it did to the rest of us. So, unfortunately, that's brought us well below our current descending wedge that I was targeting on BBIG for the last several months. The one bit of uplifting news is that if I go back in time and I look at the August chart from 2021, I can see that the same exact move happened in BBIG just before it made its big pop to the upside, breaking down by 30% from its high on that descending wedge down below the wedge all the way down to a price of approximately $1.50 before it turned around and started sailing towards the moon the very next week. The one advantage to where we currently are with BBIG's price is that it's now trading in a massive demand zone, well below its historic lows on its price. I'm not sure that BBIG has ever been this low in the last 2 years. Certainly hasn't been trading at below 80 cents in any recent memory. As far as the intraday chart is concerned, the price basically just teleported down to the downside first thing in the morning on the 25th of July and has been slowly working its way down towards 75 cents ever since. It seems to be finding a bottom, or at the very least, it is having some trouble breaking any lower than this, and it's formed a bit of a descending wedge yet again, one of my favorite reversal chart patterns. So we'll see what happens. The RSI is currently throwing some bullish divergence and looks like it's about ready to trigger another one, since the RSI will be closing high while the price is closing below its previous marker in bullish divergence. The STC indicator is green, and the MACD is getting ready to start heading towards the upside. So currently we're finding some consolidation. We're looking for support right now. We seem to be finding it at the moment. We're just going to have to be patient, see where this one goes. At the moment, haven't really changed any of my positions in BBIG. Still looking for some new catalysts to see if there's any potential for this one to rip back to the upside. At the moment, it's not looking great, but there is some good news. First thing that I want to address is that an official statement has been made by Ted Farnsworth, who, again, I've said this before, I'm not a big fan of the guy, but at least he made an effort to try to set the record straight as to what the hell was going on last week in regards to that AK filing that announced that there was a hostile takeover being attempted in Vinco Ventures by Zash, which didn't make any sense because it was a merger that was being waited on for over a year and a half now. He actually went on video to make a statement directly and pretty much pointed the finger at he pretty much pointed the finger at an independent director who signed the 8K filing, John Colucci, that announced himself to be the CEO and suddenly decided he was just taking over control executively over the company, and nobody even knew who the guy was. He basically came into the company fresh less than 6 months ago. So it had me confused. I think it had everybody confused, and honestly, like it just seems like blatant sabotage to me. Um, and it makes me wonder, like, what the hell were they even thinking bringing the guy in the first place? But in any case, I'll leave it to you to go ahead and watch this video. I'm sure you've seen it by now if you're seeing this video late on Saturday. But anyway, that isn't the least bit of the good news, but it's at least encouraging that BBIG is making an effort now to set the record straight and hopefully introduce some new leadership going forward. Speaking of new leadership, Zash Global Media Entertainment actually has announced that Eric Finman has been appointed as CEO, so he'll be taking a direct leadership role over the company that is going to be merging with BBIG once the official merger date is announced. It's pretty much an expectation at this point. It hasn't been set in stone yet, but we can expect it to continue, especially since the leadership at Zash Global Media has been taking such an active interest in the shareholders of BBIG as of recent. Eric Finman, if you don't know the man himself, he's actually one of the early crypto investors. I believe he was 15 at the time, and he made an early investment as a teenager into Bitcoin that panned out very, very well for him. He's now a independent entrepreneur. He's made quite a name for himself. Um, so since he's taken over, he's quite popular on social media. He has his own following, and for plenty of valid reasons, he's got a good name made for himself in the business world as being a very very young, very ambitious young entrepreneur who was very fortunate in his choice to invest in Bitcoin early, and pretty much made out like a bandit. So since he's been appointed CEO of Zash, he's actually taken to Twitter, and he even responded to me. Um, Citing that he was interested in talking with BBIG shareholders and any influencers who had been discussing what was going on with the stock. Just want to give a quick shout out to the dark side trader who actually reached out to Eric Finman directly and mentioned me by name, letting him know that I was doing a lot of the back end research and trying to keep people informed. So thanks, dark side trader, for naming me and throwing my stuff out there. I've also sent my Reddit due diligence on BBIG and the conflict of interest with Susquehanna, the market maker. If you're not familiar with that, then I'll provide a video link in the description below so you can actually check that out later after this. But anyway, without going into too much more detail about all that, the point is that Eric Finman has actually been reaching out to BBIG shareholders, taking an active interest in the shareholders that have basically been propping up this stock for the last year and a half while they've been getting pummeled by Wall Street. And that's encouraging to me. It's nice to actually see an executive, most likely because he's a young executive who sees the value in social media and has been directly involved in it for most of his life. He's taken to actually participating with his retail shareholders, and that's good. That can only be a good thing in my mind. Before we close this video, I want to go over the short exempt data really quickly from FINRA. What we've been seeing with BBIG is that short exempts in particular, and if you don't remember what this is, just remember that a short exempt is a short which is exempt from the regulation show filings. That is the locate rule and the uptick rule during short sale restriction. Short exempt ratio is the number of short exempts divided by the number of short volume in total, and it's a ratio of that difference. Whenever we see a short exempt ratio above 3%, it usually indicates that the market makers are struggling to keep control of the stock, especially if it's in an uptrend. What we've been seeing what we've been seeing lately is that the short exempt ratio is much higher than that, at least over 4 on most trading days, and spiking up as high as 8.7 and 10% of all short shares. It's not the largest that I've seen, but it's certainly the most consistently high that I've seen in many of the squeeze stocks for a while. And when it gets this volatile, when it gets this severe, it usually indicates one final push before either total capitulation or a reversal to the upside. And this isn't necessarily an indicator of a clear direction, but rather just an indication that there's a high amount of volatility preparing to come into the stock. The key point, though, is that there needs to be upside. There needs to be bullish momentum if that volatility is going to have a chance of carrying the price to the upside. So without buyers right here stepping in at these low, low, low prices, that's going to be kind of difficult to see that upside pushing it right now. So that's what I'm looking to see in BBIG's chart is volume coming into the stock, pushing it up to the upside and challenging all of the negative volume that's been driving the stock so low. Getting back into this channel that we've been trading in is absolutely critical in order to drive the price back up and out. If we could achieve a rebound back into this channel, a bounce and retracement to solidify and confirm our support before breaking out entirely and moving up to the upside, that would be, in my mind, the ideal scenario. It may take quite a bit of time, could be faster or slower than this. It's just a rough estimate of what I see as potential. Also keep in mind the extremely high amount of call options that are currently sitting on the call chain right now between $1 and $1.50 strike price. These are pretty far out of the money, and the emphasis on these far out of the money contracts cannot be denied. I point this out because even though the out of the money contracts have the potential to create gamma, is not in and of itself going to make much of a difference without actual share buying to push the price. Here's a quick look at the gamma ramp chart, really fast, just looking at the float that's in the money. If the price were to skyrocket up to $1.50, then that would put 5.5% of the total float in BBIG in the money, which means that market makers would have to deliver quite a few shares in order to actually account for all of those naked calls that they speculatively sold. It's important not to get too hung up on this because even though it is quite significant, it is pretty large, there still needs to be that upward push. There needs to be that momentum. Options are like gasoline, and stock buying is the match. A lit match isn't going to set the gasoline off until it gets close enough. So the price actually has to get pushed towards these levels in order to drive that gamma ramp and push that momentum to make it happen. As near as I can tell, the flashpoint that would actually cause delta hedging to take place, that would actually drive the price well beyond this level, is for the price to actually get somewhere in the range of around $1.40, which that's a 100% move from where we're currently sitting at. It's not like it can't happen. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but I am going to tell you that it's highly unlikely. The price would have to move 95, 100% within just 3 trading days in order to put the market makers underwater on these positions. It's a tall order. Unless some massive whale or a giant institution just comes up and scoops up half of the float on BBIG and announces it over the weekend, I don't see this situation actually playing out. I want to mention that, like, as great as gamma ramps and gamma squeezes are, that they're highly speculative scenarios and you cannot count on them consistently. It's not the way you make money. It's not the way you build wealth in these plays. For situations like this, you have to be patient. You have to be willing to buy ugly charts, and you have to be willing to hold your shares even on those brief moves. You're not looking for those quick scalps, and suddenly the perfect scalp will come along where you can make a 100% profit overnight. That seeking out of instant gratification is not how to play out these situations, especially when you're looking at a stock like this that is quite honestly highly manipulated by very powerful organizations and institutions. They are not interested in losing money, and they have far more power and influence than all of us put together. So it's going to be a difficult thing to achieve if you don't have the conviction necessary to actually hold your shares and continue buying even when the chart is looking this bad. It's going to test your conviction, and it's going to test your thesis over and over and over again. And I'm not getting down on people for selling out, but it's going to be hard. This entire market is designed to shake you down for every penny you put into it. It takes serious balls of steel to hold on to what you know you're holding. The most important thing that I want to leave you guys with is that even while we're selling down, this play is not over. Just like any other play, your thesis will be tested. People will tell you that you're wrong and that you do not know what you're talking about. You have to trust your own research and your mindset. You have to think objectively about these things. It's important to know when you could be wrong, but it's also important to hold on to your conviction. Know when you have studied enough and you know for certain what lies in front of you, know what the situation is, and know how long you're willing to hold and what you're willing to risk in order to see your trade play out in your favor. For me, at least for the time being, I'm encouraged by the change of management. I like the fact that I am seeing an interest being taken by the new CEO of Zash Global Media. And one final announcement, I'm very pleased to let you know that I will be speaking with him in an interview along with Johnny Love. Sometime next week, we'll provide the details once we actually work out the exact time of the interview. But yes, I will be speaking to Eric Finman along with Johnny Love. We're going to work together in order to bring him up to speed on what retail shareholders have been putting up with and dealing with for the last several years on BBIG, and especially in the last 6 months. So stay tuned for that, and I'll look forward to being a part of that conversation here next week. Until that time, I hope you guys enjoy your weekend, and I look forward to seeing you Monday at the bell.